You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast. It slowed down on me just like you did in the last podcast, Rocco. It just the whole thing. I hate that cow. I got to feed her
give
more.
It up and you moo.
No. There you go. We'll do that. All right. So, welcome to the Cattle Call. I am Jim, your extremely extroverted Coppinger host. And with me, as always, is my friend and partner.
Hello, it's Rocco.
Hello, it's Rocco. Is that your name now? Hello, it's Rocco? I like it. We'll put it on all your emails. All right.
There you go.
So, all right. And today, we want to talk, we're going to be talking about construction materials costs, right? I want to talk about the serious impact of rising material costs in the construction world. And, we figured that there is nobody out there who would give us more direct answers than our old buddy Todd Rogers from Walter P. Moore. So, Todd, thanks for being here again today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And we'll see how happy you are about it when we're done. See when you start getting those hate tweets from people when we're finished here.
Yeah, I know, right?
So, for those of you guys who are new to the podcast, Todd is the BIM Manager over at Walter P. Moore. And he's also on the board of directors for Augie. And he's one of the editors for the Augie World magazine. And he is one of those people who is just silly enough to be a recurring guest here on the Cattle Call. So,
I like torture.
There you go. Torture is good. As long as you're into it, we don't judge. It's all good. So, Todd, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what you do on a daily?
Yeah, so I've got about 28 years under my belt. I worked in production for 16 years and switched over to the reseller business, and that fell through a little bit. So back in production, I've been at Walter P. Moore for about 3.5 years now. I just got promoted to editor-in-chief for Augie World magazine.
Oh, congratulations.
Nice.
I didn't know that. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Good
Thank
for
you.
you, man.
Yeah.
Well
So
deserved.
a little bit more of a challenge there and a little more responsibility under my belt for that. So, yeah, we're looking for authors daily. We need more authors.
I'm always available. I spent half my life writing. I've written a lot of stuff for Augie in the past, so I'm always here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All righty. So let's get into today's topic, right? So in this kind of post or semi-post pandemic world, listen, anybody right now in the construction industry, I think, is really feeling the pinch of rising prices, right? Lumber and steel and piping, and it doesn't matter, you name it, right? Everything costs more today than it did even just a year ago. And in some of those materials, lumber, I think in particular, have gone up ridiculous amounts, right? And they're having a dramatic impact on construction companies' profitability and on the overall cost of building everything, right? From residential homes to skyscrapers, it doesn't matter. It's really having an impact. And I think this is a real problem because the only way that construction people can survive this kind of an increase is by passing that cost along to their clients, right? But, the truth is there's a limit to how much your clients can spend, and the increasing cost bubble that builds will eventually burst, potentially sending this industry into a really ugly economic death spiral. So Todd, let's get you into this. Where are you seeing the most impact on your projects from material prices shooting through the roof, and kind of what are you doing to address these sudden increases?
So obviously, in the civil industry, we need lots of materials, right? We're doing a confidential project out in West Texas right now that everybody's trying to switch up different types of materials, right? So, we're going from one type of system to another type of system. So, that just kind of has a domino effect all the way down, So if you're designing using something different, you might have to change the design. It's a complete mess right now as far as construction goes out in the field. It's you're doing your job in the office, but it's not working for them out there yet because they're not wanting to spend all this gigantic amounts of money. So
yeah, that's fair. I mean, I hadn't actually even considered that part of it, but yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the ways you do this is by saying, hey, that material's not available or just too ridiculously expensive. We got to change it up. And that does mean full redesigns too. I hadn't thought about that. That's another area. So there you go. See, I learned a thing. So, so look, folks, the costs that we are talking about here today, really, they're not negligible. We're not talking about like, a couple of pennies per unit, right? In the last 8 months, lumber prices have gone up almost 5 times their 2020 prices, right? And steel has tripled in cost in that same time. And that level of price jump is almost insurmountable on the construction end, right? Look, to put it into kind of a real world perspective for our listeners, the lumber price jump means that on average, right, this is just the average, the cost to build a new home this year has gone up $36,000. That's not the value of the home and the home. That's the actual construction cost went up $36,000 for a standard home in this country. And commercial projects have gone up by 15 to 18% in cost, construction costs in just the last year. Those are some really serious numbers. So Todd, I mean, are construction firms able to pass those costs along, or do you guys find that you're having to eat them in a lot, or at least in part have to just eat it and keep going?
Well, I mean, if construction's already started, then and you got stuck in that situation, you're probably going to have to eat it. So as far as passing the cost, contractors generally can't pass it, if they broke the ground. And data shows that they've been able to price new buildings at a level that reflects their rising materials and service and labor cost, obviously.
Right. But yeah, that's actually a good point, right? Once you go in, I mean, you've tied in, you've got a fixed fee contract, you've got numbers done and agreed to. You were kind of betting on rational pricing, and nobody expected this level of jump. I don't think there was anybody who. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So that's a fair statement, right? So it's kind of a little bit of both, right? You either, if you're working the job, you're stuck. But on the newer projects, at least, I'm assuming people are really kind of taking worst case scenario and bids you're putting out now?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. No worries here. Okay, so Rocco, let's wake you up over there from your snoozing in the back. In your everyday conversations with our construction clients, and we do have a real big list of construction folks we work with here, how big of a concern do they see this price jump, right? I mean, are our clients expecting it to kind of pass quickly and settle back out again, or are they seeing this as a bigger, longer-term issue?
I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, you want to go by what the statisticians say and the economists say, and they say it's gonna last through the end of the year, that things are gonna level off, but nobody really knows, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. But it all depends. I mean, we talk to like a lot of folks that are involved on the steel end, and they're looking for tools to more accurately build. And like we develop our Zen Estimate steel tools for Bluebeam Review, and those do well because they help bring more accuracy to the bidding process. Mm-hmm. But it depends on who you're talking to, right? But overall, I think it's going to go on for a little while yet, based on what I'm hearing, and that seems to be the overall consensus.
Okay. All right. So Todd, from your kind of looking at it from like the Walter P. Moore standpoint, right? Do you guys are you feeling that the pricing is a temporary one and that you can deal with it short term, or are you kind of looking at longer term solutions to address this, right? Are you trying to change the way you do things, increase accuracy, and how are you guys kind of dealing with it over the long haul?
Yeah, so personally, I think it's temporary. As far as the company's concerned, nothing's really ever temporary. You always have to plan ahead when something like this comes along. You know, like the COVID crisis, we luckily jumped right in with both feet and, continued to chug along.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, we're looking at, different vendors, we're looking at different types of materials because, you know, um, take an inlet, for example. You got concrete and steel. Well, what about nyloplast? That's plastic inlets, It plastic's obviously a lot cheaper than concrete and steel.
Right.
So, those avenues that you got to just keep, opening and looking in and saying, okay, will this work for us? Will this save the client money? So there's a lot of things to look at. And like Rocco was saying about the Bluebeam thing and getting accurate construction costs, that's important, and it seems there's more and more vendors selling their new types of construction list costs, right? For what was the one that Autodesk was telling me about yesterday? Forget. But they're supposed to give me a demo on it here pretty soon. But it's geared toward that. So it seems that more and more people are looking toward, maybe an AI type software that would help and to, push those costs around.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? I mean, when you're in an environment where there's really no definitive yes, no, is it going to last, when's it going to change, and you have no control over that, you kind of have to look at it in terms, I think, of what you can change, right? And you can change your accuracy, you can get better software, you can refine your processes, and things like that. So do with the little bits you can, and it does add up over the job. So, look, folks, it's like my grandpa always used to tell me, right? He used to like to quote the old saying, right? It's an ill wind that doesn't blow some good. And while these price jumps are causing very serious problems in the construction world, the manufacturers and the suppliers of these materials, they are reaping history-breaking profits, right? Manufacturing trade groups and even union shops are resisting government attempts to regulate or to even loosen tariffs on imports to help adjust these prices and help the construction industry. And I gotta say, to my mind, that is some really short-sighted thinking. Yes, you're going to see some amazing profits for the next 2 to 3 years that way, all right? But the manufacturers, these people who build these materials and bring these materials to us, their main clients are the builders in this country, right? And if you drive the builders and construction people out of business, you're looking at a whole lot of years of losses down the road as the construction industry gets pushed into a real serious boom bust cycle. So Todd, what do you think? I mean, do you think manufacturers are helping to perpetuate an unsustainable price level for their own short-term gains?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the answer's in the question. It's for their own short-term gain, it seems to me. I don't see them, trying to build something differently out of a different material or build it a different way at a cheaper cost. I just see them just blasting through and saying, hey man, it is what it is, give me the money, or go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I said, I can't get over that. I get it. I do understand, right? We all want to make the profits. We all got to look good in our boss's eyes and meet the shareholder requirements. But man, you're gonna pay for that, right? When you realize that plastic-based inlet works just as well as the concrete and steel one, it costs 10 times as much. Why would you go back? They're undercutting their own business this way. It's a bad call.
Totally agree.
So, yeah. All right. Okay. So let's take a break here to catch a little word from today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to get into some of the actual causes behind these construction price jumps. All right, so we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's podcast is being brought to you by BricsCAD. BricsCAD, the AutoCAD alternative that will give you all of the tools that you need in the AutoCAD design world, but in a simpler, more affordable package. In particular, today's session is being brought to you by BricsCAD BIM, the 3D modeling system that is the BricsCAD version of Revit. It actually allows you to go in and do all of your 3D modeling, all of your BIM intelligence in your standard DWG file. So you can do your 2D layout and drafting using all the same tools that you have and easily convert those over to full 3D models, and then add in and automatically using artificial intelligence convert all of that data into fully developed BIM models to the level of development that you need. BricsCAD BIM, probably the greatest advent into the BIM world in the last decade. So, Rocco, tell the kind folks how they can reach out to us and how they can get more information about BricsCAD BIM.
Sure, you can reach out to us at zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a ring, 866-824-4459. And how about I'll give you an email address too. It's sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, lots of ways to reach out to us about BricsCAD BIM. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're here today with Todd Rogers from Walter P. Moore, and we're talking about the crazy jumps in pricing for construction materials and how it's impacting the design build world. And in this segment, I really wanted to take a few minutes and talk about the why, I guess, of this topic, right? You know, these prices aren't going up just because the manufacturers want more money, and they're not going up because, you know, just because we had a global pandemic last year, though I will say that did play a big part of it, and we'll discuss why in a bit. But I wanted to start, though, just by giving Todd a chance to kind of talk a little bit about his thoughts on the root causes. So, you know, Todd, where do you see it coming from, right? Is it a supply chain problem, or is it more of a perceptual problem that's being exploited for profit?
I think it's being exploited for profit because everything you see these days are, you know, everything. It just drives me insane. It's everybody's wanting to take advantage of everybody, and it's really annoying, and it gets under my skin. But I really think it's the profit thing it's ridiculous. I mean, it's all the way down to fast food. You can't go get a hamburger at a fast food joint now for less than $10.
That's very true. That's very true, right? Everybody sees that potential and they jump on. It's why we had, you know, those limited term gas shortages and oil shortages and all that. It's like there's nothing wrong with your supply chain. There's nothing that disrupted. But when you get that concept and the reasoning, I think, where people can say, oh, there's a shortage, I'm jacking my price. So the next vendor jacks his price, and the next guy does. Next thing you know, we're at 5 times lumber costs. You know, it's crazy in that respect. So I think there's a definite point to that. You know, I think there really is a lot of perception in that people they've heard on the news that there's a shortage, so they know they have to pay more. And since they know that, the vendors are happy to charge them more, and it just becomes this self-perpetuating cycle. But I do think, to be fair, I do think that there is more to it than that. I really do think there is a supply chain issue here that goes hand in hand with it. And so for those of you, our listeners who don't know, you know, my son is a graduate from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, right, where he got a degree in intramodal logistics, which I'm still not quite sure I understand what that is. But he currently works as a manager for one of the nation's largest shipping firms, right? And he handles, you know, transfer of materials from ships to trucks to trains and so on. So, you know, needless to say, I get an earful from him on the reasons behind these supply chain shortfalls that we're all seeing and how it impacts pricing for everything, including construction materials. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to dramatically simplify down his explanations, mainly because I'm not nearly as smart as my son is. And I'm going to kind of summarize. I'm sure I'll screw it up and he'll yell at me later. But I kind of want to summarize where I think the problem comes from. So, you know, during the pandemic, right, companies of all kinds, didn't matter whether it was, the big box stores or, Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, companies didn't reduce the amount of materials that they were ordering because people were actually shopping more than ever before, when they were home in the pandemic, right? It's one of those ways that we all cope with the lockdown. We decided, hey, it's a good time to build a deck and put on the new edition because I don't have to go to work for the next 6 months. I can do those things. So people kept ordering the materials. So these manufacturers and resellers kept ordering it. The problem was that your railroads and your trucks and your ships that move those goods, well, they were all locked down too. Truck drivers couldn't drive. Rail cars couldn't run. Right? And that meant that massive amounts of the material wound up getting warehoused or left sitting in containers or on ships and railheads for months at a time. And once the restrictions were lifted, right, things could start moving again. But there are only so many trucks and so many drivers and so many trains that are available to move all of those goods. Right? So, when we got closer to, opening up and everybody started getting back out and doing things, right, the construction started booming, right, particularly residential construction. Basically, a bidding war started for those available means of transport, right? So, if you wanted to move your steel order to the front of the line, right, the shipper started charging as much as like 10 times for shipping as what they were charging just a year ago. And that increases price. Right? Plus, right, you get the limitations of even finding a way to move those materials because of that, backlog bottleneck. That creates kind of an artificial shortage. Sure, we got plenty of steel, we got plenty of lumber, we got plenty of catch basins, but they're sitting in containers in San Francisco, right? So they're not available, and that just drives the prices even higher. Right? And so there is a backlog to it. So, Todd, is that kind of what you're seeing? I mean, are you guys struggling to get materials even delivered to the site, even when you're willing to pay those crazy prices to get them?
Yeah, I like what you said, artificial shortage. I mean, is it a shortage? No, we're just behind, really, right?
Yep.
So we're not really short on it. We're just behind. It's still available, but you just have to get it.
Yeah, exactly. There's no shortage of the materials.
That's what I'm seeing, man. And getting them delivered. We hear all the time, well, it's not been delivered yet. It's not been delivered yet. It's not available. It's not available. Yes.
Yeah, it's a big struggle everywhere. Not just with construction, but everything. So if you guys are finding, going to the store and there's things you're like, why are there no candles? So it's exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter what you're ordering. It's all just being backlogged, and you get, like you said, that artificial shortage of perception. People just, it's not here, there must be a shortage, and prices go up and people lose their minds and start stockpiling toilet paper in their garage. It's crazy. Calm down, folks.
Stay away from the news.
That's it. Yeah, stay away from the news. There's the answer to most of this country's issues. Stay away from the news.
Hey, listen, I need toilet paper. I don't know about you guys, but...
It's overrated, Rocco. Trust me. That's why God invented leaves. What are you worried about? All right, so Rocco, since you decided to chime in, let's throw a question your way. What do our other clients? What have they been saying about the shortage issues? Right? Have you been talking with anybody who's found any kind of creative ways around the shortages, or are they just dealing with it any way they can?
It's just patience. I mean, what choice do we all have, right? I mean, you gotta wait, or you gotta pay a lot more. But no, there's nothing creative that I've seen yet.
Okay, that's fair. Like I said, sometimes there's no way out of it, right? So, Todd, has your company found any other workarounds for these issues? I mean, I know you said before that you're looking for new suppliers and vendors, but have you tried, or are you guys looking at like shifting materials from other jobs or your warehouses, or have you postponed projects? I mean, how are you guys getting around this nightmare in the real world?
We're just kind of going with the flow, man. Like I'd mentioned earlier, new suppliers, different types of things, different ways of going about doing things, not necessarily cutting corners, but, finding a way, basically. When the door shuts, Do you take the axe to get it open, or do you take the crowbar, or your foot? You know.
Yes.
Uh,
I use Rocco's head. That's pretty heavy. It works well. But yeah, I mean that's it, right? It's about being adaptive, I guess, and looking for what you can. But honestly,
the only way you're going to survive, man,
yeah,
is be adaptive.
it's just it's so hard when there's everybody's trying to be adaptive, and like you said, there's just this bottleneck that you just can't get around. So
Well, I think that part of, I think, part of what's interesting is that it is having an impact on construction as a whole, right? I mean, and the ability for the industry to grow. I think it's still, I think there could be, a much greater explosion of work for everybody in construction, but this is tampering a lot of things down. I mean, and that's what makes it even more difficult for us who are in these fields, right?
yeah.
Is that factor itself.
Yeah, no, you're
So,
absolutely right. I mean, you're looking at what should be the biggest construction boom we've seen in almost a century. It's
yeah,
just
they say since 1950, 51 was like the last, boom like where we should be experiencing.
yeah, and people are trying, and we got the people, you got the companies, they want to go do the work, but we can't build without things to build with. That does definitely help. So,
This happened. This kind of happened in the '80s, right? And that's when you see these, like the Miami thing, the collapsed building, right?
right, yeah.
The shoddy '80s construction.
It was very questionable because there was a massive boom. People were cutting corners. There were supply chain
Yep.
issues. We had all kinds of problems. So yeah, I mean it does have long term social impact as well. This is a real serious issue. It's crazy. And I think at the end of the day, everybody is stuck. Right? We're all we're victims of an uncontrollable circumstance that we called COVID. And look, talking to my son, he keeps telling me that their industry analysts don't see the backlog alleviating until at least late 2022. That's a year or more before that bottleneck breaks open and materials can start to freely flow again. Now look, the good news is, right, some prices are leveling off, right? Lumber has stopped its crazy climb, at least at the moment, right? But they can always swing back up in 10 seconds. Construction materials like steel are slower to move, back down in price, but they're always slower to come back down, right, due to their normally long lead times, and lead times like that are just aggravated, I think, by the current market and that bottleneck. Look,
Diesel.
ah,
Don't forget the diesel.
yeah, and diesel. Oh my lord, yeah, diesel as well. Same thing, right? Same prices, same setup. So, though again, it is the same thing with that. I do feel that a lot of, particularly the liquids, because a lot of those liquids are pushed by pipeline.
Yep.
There's no delay in a pipeline. It's trucking and rail and ship. That's a problem. Pipeline, it flows 24 hours a day if you want it to. I think they just like to turn it off and say, oh, shortage, let's bump our prices too. So there are definitely some people who I think are definitely just kind of sticking it to us. But the truth is, any way you go, right, the market, it will correct itself eventually. It's really just a question of, does the market do it rationally, or does it do it with a major construction crash, right, which none of us want. So Todd, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you the final words here for today, right? What advice or comments about this issue do you have for companies and also for the industry and government type folks who are listening in who might have a way to adjust these problems? What do you think?
I can hear people that follow me dropping off in the background. Do not let your feelings for someone, drive you to vote for them.
Okay.
It's this whole election, I think, has a huge impact on all this. Whether or not our current, chief can fix it or not, I don't know. But please don't vote with your feelings. Vote for, things like, well, let's get this done, that done, this done, that done. Just because you don't like somebody, don't vote for the other guy.
That's a fair statement to make, right? You'd like to think that as a nation, as an intelligent democratic electorate, that we might take the time to actually look at who is actually going to effectively do the things that are best for all of us, right?
Yes.
That would be the idea. It's about finding people who are looking out for the welfare of the American people and not necessarily what they can do for their local voter to make sure they vote for them. That's exactly an issue, right? And I'm not saying there's a left or a right side that's correct on that. I think there's just not enough decent people in government in general. So
that's right. That is right.
That's my own stance there. So all right. So I think with that, before we give Rocco a stroke and we really start getting those Twitter hate messages on us, we're gonna bounce out of here, folks. So Todd, I want to thank you so much for being here today and giving us your thoughts. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, man. It's always fun talking to you guys.
Good deal, man. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net. Or you could even call us, 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.